Welcome back to another feature for the Student Pilot Cast. In this one, I get to talk to Mark Palm from Samaritan Aviation. Hear how this humanitarian aviation organization is helping a lot of people all the way over in Papua New Guinea in episode 63, the 700-mile-long runway.
Chandler Tower, Cherokee 4121 Tango is at Chandler Air Service. We have Zulu, and we'd like a south departure, please.
What does it take to be an angel? Where does the sun go when it sleeps? Is every star that shines so brightly?
All right, everyone. Happy to have you back for episode 63. As I said, today you get to hear from Mark at Samaritan Aviation about their history, how it got started, what they're doing, and for whom, and even what airplanes they're doing it in. I had this chat with Mark out on one of the docks at the seaplane base at OSH22, which is one of my favorite places at AirVenture. And we got to talk right in front of their newest to them Cessna 206, a beautiful and heavily modified workhorse that they've got kitted out just for their specific mission. We'll get into that a little bit too, as well as the training necessary for their pilots and so on. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Welcome back, SPC listeners. We're back on a feature at OSH 2022. I'm here with Mark from Samaritan Aviation, and we're going to talk about that organization as well as the beautiful airplane behind us and what they're doing. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here with you today.
Awesome. I always like to start with the personal when it comes to pilots. Tell me what got you into aviation.
You know, I have a family history of aviation. My grandfather was a World War II pilot, and I had two uncles that flew airplanes. My cousin was a military pilot and flies for Delta now. But, so kind of an aviation background.
What did your grandfather fly in World War II?
You know, he flew P-51s, and then later he flew the DC-4s. So did cargo and...
Big and small.
Yeah, both. Right. And so you got kind of the aviation in my blood, you might say.
And how old were you when you started training?
I was 19 years old when I first started flying.
So just a few years ago.
I would like to believe so, but it seems like a lifetime ago, and you're not getting any younger.
All right, well, you chose a different path in aviation. What drew you to missionary work and humanitarian work with alongside your aviation skills?
Yeah, my father was a minister, so I kind of grew up in the church with the aviation background as well. And then as a high schooler, he ran a homeless mission in Santa Cruz, California, and so I had a chance to go and help people and feed people when they were hungry and give them clothes and just love on people. And that had a huge impact. And then as a 16-year-old, I went down to Mexico with my church. Had a chance to see another culture and see a need and see how the rest of the world really lives and the struggles that they have. And so that really gave me a new insight. I had a moment down there. For me, it was something I felt God spoke to me. And what I heard was, Mark, I want you to use your passion for people in aviation to share my love in a remote part of the world. And so I came back, 16 years old, back to California, like, what do I do with that? And ended up in Florida at a small school, met a friend who was born in Papua New Guinea, and the two of us in 1994 headed out and got to see another culture, a very remote place. And when you think of remote parts of the world, Papua New Guinea is really considered the last frontier. And so seeing and hearing stories of people trying to get to the only hospitals and taking 1, 2, 3, 4 days in a canoe and on the road to get to these hospitals. And that's really where this dream and vision for Samaritan Aviation came from. You know, the dream was how can we turn a 3-day trip into a 1-hour flight? And no one else over there was doing float planes. There hadn't been any float plane aviation since the 60s. And so... how can we do that? How can we reach all of these people that don't have access or hope when they have emergencies? And then the second part was, can we do it for free for the people? Can we do this and not have to charge them because they just don't have the resources? And so that was really the dream of Samaritan Aviation. And so switching on forward, I also went to aircraft mechanic school for 2.5 years to get my A&P, worked as an A&P mechanic for 5 years to be able to work and fix these planes. And started the organization in 2000, and we're celebrating 22 years now, 13 years in Papua New Guinea. And, you know, it was a long journey. It took us 10 years of telling the story to anyone who would listen, trying to get people to believe in a need of people that were 8,000 miles away. And one of the main challenges early is like, where's Papua New Guinea? Why do I care? Why should I care really? And so you're trying to explain that. And then, I was young at the time, and so I hadn't done anything like this before. So, can these guys be successful? Am I willing to part with my hard-earned money to support this? And finally, we got the funding. I moved there in 2010 with my wife and 3 little kids. Put the plane packed it in a 40-foot container, shipped it over there, put it back together in the capital of Papua New Guinea with a bag of tools, and flew it into where we operate today. And what an amazing journey it's been.
Oh, that's amazing. I've been wondering the whole time. I was going to ask you, why Papua New Guinea? And it sounds like it's because you met somebody in Florida who gave you the opportunity to see those people, and it just kind of hit you.
That was it. The calling for me was a remote part of the world. Papua New Guinea was one of those places I'd read about in National Geographic as a kid too, and just seeing the tribal people and the remoteness and just how they live. And whenever you add all of those factors, the medical service is really what is not happening. And so there's no way for someone when they get bitten by a poisonous snake, they have 8 hours to live. If you're 3 days from the only hospital, you're not even going to try. And when you have a breech birth, you can't get to the hospital, and so access and hope, you just don't have it, either one of them. And so that's really was the goal for Samaritan Aviation. The organization's name is Samaritan because of the story and that Jesus told about who is my neighbor, and he told a story about a good Samaritan, and that's really, we've taken that call and saying the Papua New Guineans are our neighbors. We believe God has given them value, and they deserve a chance at life when they have emergencies. And so that's really the core of Samaritan Aviation. It starts with a passion for the people, to love and serve them, and then you add an aviation as a tool, because it's the only way we can reach these remote communities and offer that access and hope.
Yeah, that's amazing. In the research I was doing on your website, it looks like you have a significant portion of the medical needs have to do with childbirth. Also some injuries and trauma as well. So really across the board, anything that they need, you want to be there to get them to the help that they need, the medical help, right?
That's correct. We got 40% as kids and as moms and babies, and then we have everything from malaria, tuberculosis. There's still tribal wars happening over there with spears and machetes, and so there's some trauma there. Also a lot of sickness outbreaks. We've had cholera outbreaks that we've responded to. Polio came back to Papua New Guinea in 2016, and we spent several months delivering hundreds of thousands of polio vaccines in the area to help stop that outbreak. And we continue to offer services for disaster relief. We also deliver medical supplies to 40 different aid posts. And so we've delivered 200,000 pounds of medicine in these little airplanes to these remote communities. And before we got there, it was taking 3 to 6 months to get those medical supplies. But in this plane, you pick them up and you're there in a couple hours, and it changes. So you look at exponentially how many lives have we saved. We've flown in 1,700 evacuation flights, emergencies, but we've saved thousands of people through delivering medical supplies and responding to disaster reliefs as well.
Yeah, and while your focus is narrowed geographically with Papua New Guinea, I'm wondering, have you set sort of an example for other organizations to do this elsewhere? What kind of reach have you had there, if any?
We've partnered with a lot of organizations. It's a very unique situation. So Papua New Guinea is the second largest island in the world. Where we work, it's 250,000 people along a 700-mile river. And right now we're looking at expanding ourselves to the other side of the island. There's 14,000-foot mountains in between the river we're working on now and the river where we're going to go here in the next 12 months. But the need is great. In the area we're going, there hasn't been any medical service in 20 to 30 to 40 years. And so we believe we have a model that works, and we believe we can go offer that assistance. So I'm hoping we're inspiring other organizations to do what we're doing. But it takes partnerships. We've been blessed to have individuals, foundations, churches sponsor us, as well as the Papua New Guinean government gives us about 30% of our operating budget in grants in the country. And so we've been a partner with them, and we expect that to continue as we expand into the other side of the island.
Excellent. Well, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about how your operation works, which could be pretty interesting. How do the folks in need get in touch with you, and how do you respond? How does that all work?
Yeah, so when I first went over there, 2010, there was a lot of HF radios in the villages, so high-frequency radios, kind of similar to ham radio. So they would get a hold of us that way. And over the years, they've been putting cell phone towers up. And so Still today, a lot of times a villager will have to run 30 minutes, climb a coconut tree to find a signal, or they'll climb a couple hours and climb a mountain and call us. Or there's places, if they hike down, they can get to certain parts of the river that have cell phone connection. And so we have someone that has a phone 24/7 that we answer that phone and triage to see if it's an emergency and kind of what level of emergency it is. And then what do we need to respond? If it's a snake bite, we'll go get the anti-venom, take the anti-venom straight to the patient. If it's a birthing challenge, we try to get a midwife to bring out as well. And we work with the local hospital there and use the national Papua New Guinea nurses to help us as well. And then we also have a trauma nurse on staff who's our medical director. And they're the ones he's the one that triages and will go on the very severe emergency flights.
Okay. And how many airplanes are you operating?
We have 2 currently over in Papua New Guinea. This will be going over later this year. We're really excited to show this off at Oshkosh, and so people can really get a tangible visual of the airplane, to see the stretcher that's in there. And this will be packed in a container, and in December it'll be shipped over and hopefully be operating by March of next year.
Excellent. From what I can tell in the research that I've done, you have families go over as family units, sort of missionaries offering their services, pilots, mechanics, and so on. Are they rotating, or do they go over on a full-time permanent basis?
Yeah, so our model is 2 years on, 6 months off. So two years in the country, 6 months back in the States, kind of talking to their supporters. All of our pilots raise their own support. All of our staff does. And so it's good to come back, tell the stories, see their families, get their kids acclimated back into society a little bit, education, our doctor appointments and all of those things. And so it's kind of a 2 year on, 6 months back home, telling the story. Because we found, you have to get over there, you have to learn the culture, the language. It takes a pilot about 8 months after he arrives in New Guinea really to be flying by himself. And so there's just a lot of training that goes into it and a lot of preparation. And myself, I went over there. My youngest was 4. I had a middle one at 5, and my oldest was 7. And when my wife and I moved over there. So it's really a family effort, and that's really, too, the passion that all of our staff have, is that the families are involved. It's not just the pilot going out and flying, it's the whole family. So the kids are in the hospital feeding patients and clothing patients and praying with patients. The wives are there as well. And my wife was, the hospital. She drove the ambulance. She was the weather lady when I needed weather reports, because there isn't any weather over there. And it was a team effort, and so that's really how we see it, and that's how the staff that come over, that's how they want it. They want their families to serve, and they want their kids to see another culture and see what the rest of the world lives like and how we can serve others through our actions and what we do with our lives.
Awesome. Well, tell me a little bit about the airplanes themselves. What are you using here? How have you modified them, and so on?
Yeah, we use Cessna 206. This is a 1976 F model. We have 2 G models over there as well, but we basically take an old plane like this. We bought it for a little over $150,000, and we've dumped about $600 into it since we bought it. So, Aeroset floats, there's $100,000. The right-hand door for the Whip Air right-hand door is a $35,000. The Flint tip tanks is another $20,000. That gives us an extra couple hundred pounds of useful load as well. We also have the Sportsman Stole, which gives the flaps will droop with, the ailerons will droop with the flaps as you put them down, and give you extra lift. Mm-hmm. We put a leading edge cuff as well. We upgrade the engine from an IO520 to an IO550. Our partners at Western Skyways do these engines at cost of parts only. They've been an amazing partner of ours. We put us 86-inch seaplane prop on there. We redo the interior. We look over the plane, and after that, it's ready to go. And then we'll finalize it with VGs on the plane when we get it to Papua New Guinea.
Okay. All right, excellent. And what kind of operations? I know it's all seaplane work. You're landing in rivers, in the ocean, some of it difficult to get to. Talk a little bit about the skills that the pilots need to develop as they get effective over there.
Yeah, so we operate on a 700-mile main river. It's called the Sepik River. It's up to 1,000 feet wide in some places. And the amazing thing about this river is the level of the river can rise and fall by 20 feet just in a week. And so you have some major fluctuations. You'll have sandbars that are 3 feet high one week. The next week they're covered up. And you've got a lot of logs, huge trees floating down the river. You've got crocodiles, fishing nets, people in canoes, and the constant change in the color of the water is the color of chocolate. So you could see about 2 inches below the surface. So it really takes a lot of good. Probably the biggest thing our pilots have is good judgment. For me, especially when I launched this, the first few years, I couldn't go in on the ground to check out spots. Everything I went into was assessed by the air, so it was very nerve-wracking to hope. You can't see very far, but you make an educated decision, and it's been amazing. We've flown thousands of hours. We've had 0 incidents, 0 accidents in the last 12 years. We've got great pilots, and they do a lot of training on this side. It's not just about going down to a flight school, getting your private license. All of our pilots are commercial instrument, and they also have mountain flying experience. They also have done bush-type flying experience as well as the seaplane. And so we have an assessment process. They actually go to a SMAT, which is School of Missionary Aviation Technology in Michigan. They do a flight assessment. That's kind of the first step. And if they can get through that, which is not very easy, then we kind of go down the next step. But it's a very long process. And as I tell these guys, look, you get assessed psychologically. Your families are interviewed. You have to be a great pilot. You have to love people. And then you get the privilege, after all the work you've done all these years, to then go and raise your own support for your salaries and come over and serve. And that it really is a privilege. And the staff we have is just amazing.
That is amazing. I had no idea that they were raising their own funds and everything to go over there. That's incredible. So when it comes to maintaining these aircraft, do you find it difficult to get the parts you need, the expertise you need, and so on while you're over there, or has that been working out really well?
Parts are always a struggle, especially when we only had one aircraft. I remember one time, we had one airplane. We needed a part. It was taking 2 weeks to get there, and I had to turn down 18 emergency flights while I'm waiting. And there's nothing more frustrating than to hear someone's call you and tell you that someone's dying, and then you're waiting on a part. And so having the 2 airplanes is huge. But parts are always an issue. You try to get the ones on the shelf that break the most, and then there's always those ones that you're not ready for, and it takes time. So that's always a big struggle. It takes about 2 weeks to get anything all the way to Papua New Guinea, and it's very expensive as well. Shipping, especially nowadays, has gotten extremely expensive. Corrosion is a huge issue. We live in the hangar. The planes live about 1,000 feet from the ocean, and there's trade winds, and so a lot of salt water. We land on some brackish water. We don't do a lot of open ocean operations just because it's so rough. But we do a lot of brackish water operations close to the ocean. And corrosion's our biggest challenge. It is something that we're fighting on a daily basis.
This may be a dumb question, but I presume all of your operations are VFR.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the plan for sure.
Yeah, yeah. When you're able, when you don't get caught in something, right? So, how much does weather play a factor in being able to accept a mission? It must also be frustrating when you can't get somewhere because it's socked in or something like that.
Yeah, weather comes up quick in the South Pacific. It's hot, humid. Density altitude is about 3,000 feet when you're at sea level, and the weather does come up quick. I think over the years, thankfully, I've only had to turn down 3 or 4 flights. Sometimes we can wait; it passes through quick, or we can find a way around or under or over. And so, even though it's a challenge, it's something we've been able to work around and be successful most of the time to accomplish the mission. But yeah, weather in New Guinea, it just will pop up and blow up. You'll be on the river and this big cell's coming at you, and you're trying to load a patient on before the winds pick up to 40 knots and the rain starts coming down in sheets. And so yeah, there's always those added variables that make it hard.
I'm guessing sometimes they have to wait it out there on site.
Yeah, I've had to wait for storms to pass. I've had to park downriver, 20 miles and wait for the weather to get better. But the good news, you've got 700 miles of river. One of our T-shirts a few years ago said on the back, it said, ask us about our 700-mile runway, because we're float planes and we can land anywhere. And so that gives us a bit of an edge. If the weather's bad, we put it down and we wait it out. And it just gives us a chance to go hang out with the villagers anyways and develop relationships. So it's not a bad thing unless someone's dying and you're not able to get out. But we've been able to, we've never had anyone die while we're waiting on weather. So that's been a blessing as well.
Excellent. Well, Mark, those people who are watching this or listening to this, what would be your call to action for them to be able to help out if they're so inspired?
For me, it's been an amazing journey. All of our staff to be over there, kind of the tip of the spear, so to speak, saving lives and visiting these families. And there's nothing like going back in and seeing someone that you've saved and that wouldn't be alive if you weren't there. But the reality is we can't do that without people coming alongside of us and our partners here in America and around the world. And so I just encourage you, if this is something you'd like to be part of, we'd love to have you go to our website at SamaritanAviation.org. You can look at Facebook, Instagram. We'd love to have you partner with us because we can't do this on our own. It's a collective effort, and we really consider our donors their partners. And it allows us to go and offer access and hope to bring the hands and feet of Jesus to these remote communities, which is what our goal is at Samaritan Aviation.
Mark, this sounds like just an amazing effort. We appreciate your taking the time today to talk to us a little bit about it, and best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. It's been great to be with you today.
Thanks. All right. I just love seeing all the great humanitarian efforts going on around the world from pilots, and Samaritan Aviation is no exception. If it strikes you, please find a way to help out. Don't forget that there's a video version of this episode. The best place to find that is on YouTube, and I'll include a link in the show notes. Thanks again for joining me on the podcast. I'd love to hear what you think of the latest features and what you'd like to hear about in the future. You can reach me on email at bill@studentpilotcast.com or on Twitter using the handle @BillWill. That's Bravo India Lima Lima, Whiskey India Lima. And don't forget to keep your head in the game. Learn something about flying today. Catch you on the next one. Music for today's episode is To Be an Angel by the Canadian band Uncle Seth. You can get more information and subscribe to the podcast feeds on the web at studentpilotcast.com. Remember, any instruction that you hear in this podcast was meant for me and for me alone in the situation I was in at the time. Please do not try to blindly apply anything you see or hear in this podcast to your own flying without thinking it through on your own completely. If you have questions about any aspect of your flying, please consult a qualified CFI.